Hello there, world of tankers. Welcome back to another one of my videos. I am Blitz, and today I'm going to be talking about the Chimera. Now, this tank has just come into the game a couple of days ago for the price tag of $45 US. Now, in this video, just like my other reviews, I'm going to be talking about the tank, how to run it, where to run it, everything else you do need to know about the vehicle, and of course, at the end of the video, whether or not this tank is worth that price tag stuck on it. Now, thankfully, it is not in crates. I really do hate when Wargaming puts brand new tanks in crates. It really drains my bank account, and it makes me pretty upset that I have to try and gamble to make reviews on them, so I'm happy that this tank did not come into crates. But taking a look at this vehicle statistically, the first thing you will probably notice is the average damage per shot. It is 440, which now makes it the highest average damage tier 8 medium in the entire game. However, when mediums do get such a big alpha, just like the T-34-3, this tank has an awful damage per minute of 2,023, which means that really, while you may have a great alpha, your damage per minute may be the worst, I actually think, out of every other tier 8 medium in the entire game. One of the main issues I have with tanks like the T-34-3 and these big alpha mediums, or just mobile tanks that have a big amount of alpha damage, they usually just have terrible penetration values. Thankfully, the Chimera actually has 218 millimeters of penetration, which is really good. That means that you're pretty much going to be able to penetrate any tier 8 heavy, or pretty much any tier 8 opponent you do go up against, as long as you have a basic knowledge of where to shoot at their vehicle. While the standard ammo has pretty good standard penetration, the premium ammo really isn't that spectacular. It's sitting at around 252 millimeters of penetration. Now, that may sound pretty good when you're up against tier 9 heavy tanks like the E75. The lower plate of an E75 ranges around 250 thick, which means that if they know how to angle their tank, you're pretty much going to have a very tough time trying to penetrate their vehicle just in the lower plate. So I would definitely suggest to run this tank with calibrated, because it's going to bring your standard APCR pen up to 265, making tanks like the E75 and other tier 9 heavies and tank destroyers that you might not have been able to penetrate easily now a little bit better. And as well, it's going to bring your high explosive penetration up 6 to 70 millimeters of penetration. And when you combine that with the 530 average damage per shot the high explosive can do, and you start aiming at light tanks or the rear of American heavies, or really any tanks that have somewhat weaker armor, you're just going to tear them apart, taking off as much as 1/3 of their hit points in a single shot. When you take a look at the gun handling statistics on this vehicle, the aiming time actually is not that bad at all. It's 2.08 seconds, and as well the dispersion at 0.326 is not too shabby, judging that this tank does 440 average damage per shot. That is a very large caliber cannon, so you would normally expect it to have these terrible dispersion values, terrible aiming time, and to be honest, the shell velocity isn't that bad either. It's sitting at 950, so overall I actually think that the gun aiming time and the shell velocity is really nice on this tank, and as well it gets 10 degrees of gun depression, which means that this tank can work ridgelines like a boss. And because it's so low down and it's got this boxy turret, sort of like the Conway, it can really just peep its turret over the ridgelines, hiding its entire hull, and just nailing the enemy for, 500 damage sometimes to back up, and then pull back out 14 seconds later. It is great at doing peekaboo shots. When taking a look at the mobility of the Chimera, the first thing that really surprised me is just how much this tank weighs. To give you an example, the Chieftain T95 weighs 52 tons, and the Chimera comes in at 56.2 tons. It is just a big beast of a medium tank, and it can go up to 50 kilometers per hour forwards, which means that if you run into lightly armored tanks like an RU-251, well, you're going to be taking 400, even maybe 500 hit points off of that tank really easily without losing many on your own. As well, the Chimera, even though it is this big heavy tank, can also back up at 20 kilometers per hour. Now, the effective power to weight ratio isn't spectacular at 17.61, but from my personal experience of driving it, really it can still stay up to like 40-45 kilometers per hour easy, even when going uphill. Now, one big downfall of this tank is the traverse speed. It only goes 36.45 degrees a second, which really isn't turning that quick, and the turret also does not turn super quick. So I have had some instances where my vehicle's actually been tracked, and I've had light tanks flank around me, shoot me, and then go hide somewhere else. So it is not the quickest on the traverse speed, but to be honest, that is to be expected when you have a 440 damage gun. You may be thinking those 56 tons that the Chimera does have must contribute to some decent armor. Well, unfortunately, this tank literally has none. You can see that the upper plate of the vehicle is only about 175 millimeters thick, and the lower plate's only about 140. And when you take a look at the turret, you can see it's only about 200 millimeters thick, and that's literally it, the entire turret. Even with the gun mantlet shooting through the gun is still only about 210. So if you have any tier 8 vehicle, or even tier 7 vehicle that has more than 200 millimeters of pen, don't even bother aiming at the tank's hull. If you have a shot on this tank's turret, just shoot at the turret. As long as you're not hitting the little edges of it, you're going to penetrate every single shot. Even the roof of the tank is easy penetration since it's very weak on the top. You're going to overmatch every single shell. So the tank is very, very easy to penetrate. And you may think, well, it's got those 10 degrees of gun depression. Does that make the turret any stronger? Well, because the tank's turret is literally a box, it still stays the exact same. It's still 203 thick. The gun mantlet, still everything is exactly the same. So even when this tank is using gun depression, the upper hull might be around 230 thick, but it doesn't matter because you can penetrate right through the turret. So this tank literally has really not much armor at all. The side of the tank does have a bit of spaced armor on the lower part covering the traps, but the upper part, there's this fine bar you can see, it's red here. That fine bar you can penetrate with high explosive and like an RHM. As you can see, it's only about 88 thick. You can penetrate that, and it is not covered by spaced armor. As well, the rear of this tank, this is a pretty large tank, and the back of it is pretty long as well. So it's 50 millimeters across the entire rear of the tank. So if you're up against this vehicle and you've got its rear, shoot high explosive. You will not regret it. You'll probably penetrate every single shell. But you can see overall the tank really does not have much armor. So a lot of people told me, well, it looks like the Carnarvon. They think it's got a lot of armor. They pulled out. They run it like a heavy because it's got that big alpha. And to be honest, it just can't take shots for crap. Now, personally, I play this tank actually pretty aggressive, because, as you guys know, 440 hit points is literally 1/4 of any average tier 8 hit point pool, which means that literally in 4 shots you can take out any tank that comes up against you. So I'm not going to, of course, run this tank directly on the front line without any teammates supporting me, but what I want to do is, instead of just sort of sitting at the back and letting my teammates take the hits for me and letting them just die and then have me die because I can't support them with damage per minute, what I normally do in this tank is I'm going to stay right with my medium tank, support them, take a big chunk of hit points off of the enemy vehicle, and then they're a lot lower. My medium tanks are sometimes going to push across. It just works out really well for the Chimera, in my opinion, and that's why I'm really enjoying the tank. Personally, I love big alpha vehicles, and I've been waiting for this tank to come into the game ever since World of Tanks PC had it put into their game from the Mission Marathon. So I've been waiting forever for this tank, and I'm really glad they kept that 440 average damage per shot. Another good thing about this tank is it is a premium, so it's not going to be nerfed. If anything, it will be receiving a buff. But overall, I enjoy the tank. I love it, but is it worth $45? Personally, I wouldn't say so. $45 is really, really expensive. And this tank, it's what a premium tank should be. It's not overpowered. It's not underpowered. It can do the trick. It's fun to play, and it earns quite a bit of credit. So I give Wargaming props for not releasing a super broken premium. But why would you buy this tank when you could buy a Super Pershing or just any other tier 8 medium vehicle for a lot cheaper price tag? So my advice would be to wait for this tank to come out again. That way you can probably get it for $20, $25, a lot cheaper price tag, because this is never going to be a crate tank. I can pretty much say that guaranteed, because not a lot of people are going to be buying this tank. But overall, I still love the tank if you do end up picking it up, or you love tanks like the T-34-3. I'm not saying by any means this is a bad option. I'm just saying that the price tag they stuck on the tank is a little bit too high for my opinion on the vehicle. But overall, it's excellent to run. I think it's fantastic. In every single battle I play in it, it always brings new, exciting characteristics to the battlefield. So you won't be disappointed if you do pick up this vehicle. But other than that, guys, I hope you did enjoy this video. As always, make sure to smash that like button if you did in the comments down below. As well, let me know what you thought of this video. If you didn't like it, criticize me. If you liked it, please tell me in the comments down below what you liked, what you didn't. Give me some helpful advice if I messed up any of the statistics or anything else like that. And other than that, guys, I hope you did enjoy it. Make sure to subscribe. Let's get up to 6,000, 7,000, whatever you want me to get up to. Let's just get this channel to grow. Share the video, and I'll see you in the next one. Have a good day.